Why don't we stand for the reading of our gospel reading, which is also found there in your bulletin. And it comes from the book of John. Jesus is gathering his disciples there. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him, about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said to him, "Here is truly an Israelite, in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under a fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly, I tell you, you will see heaven open to the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." This is the word of the Lord. And you may be seated. Okay, I just have to say this. The band sounds amazing tonight. Are they not really good? Amen? Yeah. Oh my gosh. So good. Yes. Clap, please. I'm so blessed with such wonderful, wonderful musicians. We heard today the words, "Come and see." Philip says these words. When I was a young boy, I grew up in Jamestown, North Dakota. Anyone from North Dakota here? Oh man, one that will admit they are from North Dakota. Well, I grew up in North Dakota, on the edge of town, Jamestown, North Dakota. And if you know anything about Jamestown, North Dakota, on the north end of town where we lived was the Jamestown Reservoir. The Jamestown Reservoir. And on the weekends during the summer, often our street would be packed with cars heading to the reservoir to hang out, as people do here in Alec, on the lake. People would go out to the reservoir and hang out and fish. Well, my father, a good fisherman, he was not. He was not. But he had a good friend, and they enjoyed going out to the reservoir. They would stand on shore, and they would cast out, and they'd fish, and they would fish, and they would fish, and day after day, they caught nothing. But he loved to do it. There was a day, though, that I would say his fishing was really, really poor. It was a bad day. He went out and was fishing for a couple of hours with this friend of his there on shore, cast after cast. No fish, no fish, no fish. Well, he decided to give up. He told his buddy, "I'm packing up, I'm out of here." He packed his tackle box up. He threw everything in the back of his little Toyota Tercel, 1982 Toyota Tercel. And he hopped in the driver's seat, looked in his rearview mirror. I'm guessing he did one of these to his buddy, and off he went. That's when, as he had rolled down the windows, because it was a hot North Dakota day, he heard his buddy yelling, "Come back! Come back! Come and see! Come back!" Well, my dad, being smart, kept his hand on the wheel and turned around like this to look back, and there he saw his buddy holding the biggest bass he'd ever seen in his life. The biggest bass. And he was so happy for his friend. He was so excited as he's looking back like this, so excited, so happy. That is, until he drove his Toyota Tercel into a big old oak tree. Smashed in the front end of that thing pretty nasty. Huh? Come and see. Come and see. Folks, in our reading today, Jesus is gathering his disciples. You know how he does that. He gathers those 12 disciples. Jesus goes to Galilee here, and there he invites Philip. We heard about this guy named Philip to join him. He says to Philip, "Follow me." And Philip, skipping all the questions you and I would normally ask, like, "What's the time commitment, Jesus? Huh? My kids have hockey practice, Jesus. I got a haircut on Monday. I got a work project due on Wednesday. I got a busy life, Jesus." But no, Philip immediately agrees with that question and excited, maybe a little overzealous, we might say, he goes straight for his buddy Nathaniel. He wants Nathaniel on his team, and he invites Nathaniel the same old way. And what's interesting, though, as we read today, at the beginning of our reading, what's interesting is Nathaniel's response to Philip. You probably don't remember. And I think, if we're honest, I think he's maybe a little bit more like us. Rather than Philip, I think we're more like Nathaniel, because Nathaniel responds with a little bit of cynicism, a little bit of skepticism. He flippantly says to Philip, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" This is talking about Jesus. As if to say, "I don't know, I don't want to get too involved with all this religion and church stuff there, Philip. I don't want to be one of those Jesus freaks here. I'm just not convinced. Leave me out of this, Philip." And yet Philip simply responds to Nathaniel's skepticism, all his sort of questioning, by simply saying 3 simple words: "Come and see." Like my dad's fishing buddy yelling from shore, "You've got to come and see." Philip says, "You've got to come and check this out." And once you know it, as we read the Bible, we find out that this skeptical, questioning, almost belligerent Nathaniel becomes one of Jesus' disciples. Come and see. Pretty simple words. And I think what's interesting is that in the book of John, the book that this reading comes out of, again and again, from the early days here, from these disciples to this Pharisee named Nicodemus later in the book, to a Samaritan woman later in the book, to a man born blind, to Peter and Pilate, and eventually Thomas. Characters throughout the book of John's Gospel are encountered by this Jesus. People from all walks of life. There are women and men, Jews and Gentiles, rich and poor, powerful and vulnerable, people of all shapes and sizes and varieties and flavors. Jesus meets them all. And to each one of them, throughout John, in one way or another, Jesus does the same thing over and over again. Over and over again with each one of them, they hear him, or one of his disciples, simply say, "Come and see." Come and see. God's doing something new. Come and see all the new possibilities for your life. What it would be like to be surrounded by a genuinely gracious, welcoming, and loving community like we're building. Come and see what your life might look like, or your family's like. Come and see. Be part of a community that welcomes without judgment. Come and see. Folks, when I hear the story of Philip simply turning to Nathanael, not arguing with him, not trying to convince him of his faith, not condemning him, but simply saying, "Come and see," I can't help but think of all those people, those gracious people in my own life who, like Philip, as I grew up, those people who didn't cram faith down my throat or try and convince me of this or that or threaten me with hellfire, but instead simply offered me the invitation over and over to just come and see. To come and see what God is doing in and through a community of disciples, that community we call the church. At least for me, it was a gentle and simple invitation from family and friends and mentors as I grew up. And I guess, I could be wrong, but I guess you're probably similar. But there's been a person, somebody, or a group of people, a family, friends, who have invited you, someone in your life who said, like Philip, come and check this out. I wonder if any of you could name, who's that person been in your life? That person who's invited you. Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's a grandma, maybe it's a neighbor, a friend. You probably know as well as I do that the key factor when it comes to people attending church, the key factor in whether or not they come and actually check out a church is an invitation from an individual. A personal invitation. It's not the size of the church or the reputation of the church. It's not the beauty of of the building. It's not the service times, the style of worship, the quality of music. This is hard for me to admit, but it's not even the brilliant preaching and dashing good looks of the pastor. Sorry, Mike. I know. It hurts. The number one reason people give for coming to a church for the first time, surprise, surprise, it's that someone invited them. Someone invited them, just as Philip said to Nathaniel, as someone said to them, to you and to me, come and see. I told you earlier this week we celebrate the life of our congregation over the last year, and we have a lot to celebrate. And it's this time each year when we celebrate the life and share, and the great gift that we have together. And as we celebrate this weekend, and we hear the story of Philip, there's a question that's stuck in my head all week long. A question that I want to ask you today. And I'm even going to invite you to talk to your neighbor about this question. I apologize ahead of time. Okay? I want you to wonder about this. When it comes to our church family, the family we share at Calvary, or maybe if you're from another church, think about that church. What is the most meaningful thing for you about the church you attend? What's the most meaningful? What's your favorite thing about the life we share as Calvary, as a church? I want you to think about that for a second. And then I want you to turn to a neighbor. Okay? You can do this. You can do this. Even those of you that are Norwegian like me, you can do this. Turn to your neighbor and just share for 1 minute. What do you love about your church? What's your favorite thing? Why do you keep coming back? All right? Share. Go ahead. You can do this.
We all agree, right? No, it's done.
Were you all able to name at least one favorite thing, something you love about your church? If so, say amen. Yeah. All right, that's good. It's really good. I'd love to hear every one of your answers about that. I really would. I really would. Folks, I probably don't need to remind you of this. If you've been around Calvary for the last year, we have a lot to be thankful for at Calvary over this past year. I'm going to read a list that is not complete, but these are some of the things that have happened at Calvary over the last year. Over the past year, over 100 new members have joined our church. Together, we've raised close to $1 million to renovate our building and grounds through the Renew Plan. The Renew Plan had us tearing down houses, building a playground, replacing carpet, new lights, paint. We fixed the boiler, and there was a new sign put out in the parking lot, a new canopy went up, and we gave a bunch of money away to our partners here at Luther Cross. Our preschool and our Sunday school programs grew. We hired a new youth and family staff, Leanne Blanch and Katie Christensen. More and more kids went to camp this summer. We hosted parties, from a big barbecue out in the parking lot to hosting one of Concordia's choirs. We had an organist from Latvia who played a concert at our church. We had this great concert by Peter I. We had Calvary at the lake. Amen? I know. We raised thousands of dollars for the Jefferson High School food shelf. We packed bags of food for elementary kids who were in need. We gathered hundreds of gifts for our giving tree. Over 500 quilts were sewn by our sweatshop little old ladies in the basement. My God. And they were sent to places around the world. And probably most importantly, more and more people are hearing the story of God's love through Calvary. As worship attendance each weekend is up over 100 people over last year at this time. We have a great story to tell. Amen? Amen. And as we celebrate this weekend, this life we share, as we gather here at Lutheran Press, we'll gather again tomorrow. I wonder what it would be like for us to be a little like Philip. Huh? What if we were willing, like Philip, to invite someone we know and care about to simply come and see? Come and see. Would we ever, as Midwestern Scandinavians, ever be willing to simply share the story, share what you love about our church family, this family of faith we share at Calvary, or whatever church you're at? Would we ever share that? And then simply, without arm twisting, without strings attached, you don't even have to preach a sermon, but simply invite them to come and see. Come and check it out. Come see what we found here. Come and see. Folks, on this weekend of our annual meeting when we celebrate the life of the church, we give thanks for all the ways God is alive through our church family. And we give thanks for God using people like you and me to invite others to come and see. Thanks be to God. Amen.